back. U.S. telecom company Sprint has become the first U.S. company to negotiate a direct roaming service agreement with Cuba. The historic deal was signed on Monday at the start of the Havana International Trade Fair. Our very own Michael Voss on the ground joins us live from Havana with more details. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Phil. As you know, the U.S. trade embargo against Cuba still stands. But earlier this year, U.S. President Barack Obama used his executive powers to allow telecoms companies to do business with Cuba. One of Sprint's competitors, Verizon, has already announced a Sprint service to Cuba, but it's through a third country. The Sprint deal was negotiated directly with Cuba's telecoms monopoly, Itegsa.
The deal Sprint Communications signed in Havana on Monday will allow its U.S. customers traveling to Cuba to use their phones here to make and receive calls, text messages and data. Cubans could also use the service, but would have to set up accounts through third country banks, since dollar transactions are still banned under the U.S. trade embargo against Cuba.
This is a big deal because it shows that the U.S. and Cuba are working together in an area of progress, which is communications, and we expect this to be the beginning of a long-term business relationship between Sprint and between Itegsa.
The agreement was one of the highlights of the opening day of the Havana International Trade Fair, which this year attracted almost 1,000 companies from more than 70 countries, including the United States.
This year's International Trade Fair is the largest seen here for more than a decade, with several countries taking part for the very first time. It's a sign of the growing interest around the world to get a presence in Cuba before the United States ends the trade embargo.
In his opening address, Cuba's Minister of Foreign Trade, Rodrigo Malmierca, said that U.S. companies would receive the same treatment as everyone else, but that Cuba would not forget those who'd stuck with it over the years. He then went on to sign a series of cooperation agreements with Spain, which sent a high-powered ministerial team to the fair. One of the key Cuban positions is promoting its proposed tax-free special development zone around the new port at Mariel. 8 small to medium-sized companies have signed contracts to move there, like this Mexican paint manufacturer. But there's still a long way to go if Cuba is to achieve the $2 billion a year in direct foreign investment it says it needs to kickstart its economy.
Sprint is part of a 25-strong U.S. corporate presence here at the Havana International Trade Fair. They're backed by a group called the U.S.-Cuba Business Council and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Phil.
Hey, Michael, the White House is also allowing these telecom companies to work with Cuba on its internet infrastructure as well, right? What's the progress there?
Well, everyone here is waiting to see just what plans Cuba has to roll out its internet across the country. It has some of the lowest take-up anywhere in the world. Certainly a lot of the big US corporate players have been here. Google even offered to roll out Wi-Fi across the entire country for free over the next 2 years. It was rejected by the Cubans, perhaps for security reasons, after all those revelations about US eavesdropping, looking at people's emails and phone calls. And the US are not alone here. Some of the big Chinese telecom companies, such as Huawei and ZTE, are well established. They have offices here. So once we know what Cuba is planning to do with its internet, I think there is going to be some serious competition.
Michael, as they taught me in MBA school, being at the right place at the right time, and you certainly are. Very exciting times there. Good to see you.